my voice sounds a little off today. That's because in bad news, I got COVID. So I've been battling that the past week. I think this is the first time I've ever had it, with the exception of January 2020, before anyone knew what was going on. And I did lose my sense of taste for a couple days, and that is worst. So in good news, I'm on the mend, negative test achieved, and my sense of taste is back. So that's huge for me this week. Food is literally my life. So
The worst thing that happened to this group. That's the worst thing to happen to a group
yeah,
like this.
it's terrible. And I
Imagine
was like,
Kevin not tasting cheese.
yeah, what do I do if it doesn't come back? Like, that's going to be a whole other life-changing situation. So
It comes back.
yeah, luckily it's back. So, yeah. Things are good here. It's been a really hot summer. We've had a lot of rain too, but the tours are going great overall. I mean, we're having a great year. Our revenue is up about 80% over this year to date last year, and then private tours alone is up about 70%. So that's all really great news. It's been a long haul back after 2020 to kind of rebuild the team and kind of get the public and the private tours back on the move. So this is really the first time I've felt sort of anything close to what we were achieving before everything came crashing down. So so far so good this year.
All right. And you're on a whole new path here now. So I want to start with something kind of Paula touched on there in her introduction, just about this idea of that corporate group side of not having the time to do it. And, how do I even get started with this? For you, what were some of those hurdles? I know you already had groups coming in, but what were some of those hurdles that you were coming up against initially?
Yeah, so for us, private tours have actually been really great. It's been a good portion of our revenue for the past quite a few years. I think this year, it's been about 50% of our sales, but our sales have been kind of all over the place. So the big hurdle for me was that we started getting these requests kind of coming in fast and furious. Word of mouth was helping. Groups were coming back for multiple tours, and I was on my own to do that, as well as all of the other things. So it was kind of like rebuilding the tour guide team and taking care of all of the, accounting and payroll and communications with the restaurants, still giving a lot of tours myself. And I just didn't have time to do all of it. So the incoming requests were being stored in folders on my desktop, and it was easy to just kind of let a few slip through the cracks, and it just wasn't as efficient of a process as it could have been. So the hurdle for me was, first of all, getting another set of hands on board that could take this over. But in combination with that, I did not have a good process set up, passing off the practice of taking these incoming requests and putting them in folders on your desktop or in your email server is not a good plan or a process. It also wouldn't enable me to communicate with that other person in such a way to where we could kind of go back and look at what communications have happened with that person, so we weren't duplicating efforts, kind of looking like we were disorganized on our end, either letting it slip through the cracks completely or both getting back to them with the exact same email. So for me, the hurdle was Rachel, who's on my has been with me for a long time in different capacities, but now she's more or less kind of the director of tour operations, and a big portion of her responsibility now is handling the incoming private tour requests, and she's pretty much doing it from beginning to end. And the process that we've been using is really deals and active campaign and having that pipeline. And that has been amazing. So kind of once I had her ready to go and I knew that she had the bandwidth and I had the ability to pay her to do that, then we could kind of start. I wanted us to start together, which we did, so that, she and I have really learned the whole process together and have been sort of in it together since
Cool.
day one with starting with you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, we see that with a handful of tours, that there's this right-hand person who's kind of involved as well, that the owner operator is trying to train, trying to bring up. Like, if this person could just handle private tours, private groups, oh, my life would be so much easier. And yeah, once you have those systems, the thing that you mentioned there was doing it through the emails, just the systems you had in place, you had some stuff slipping through the cracks.
Yeah.
And that is one of those things we absolutely want to eliminate, especially with this task. You're closing some of these deals over $10,000 now, that we've increased prices on these private groups as well. What happened there? How did we get the price up over 10,000 for some of these now?
Oh, Joe, you know the answer to that question.
What happened? What
Um,
happened with it?
well, I think to boil it down to the most simple answer is that we weren't charging enough for the amount of work and the amount of effort that goes into some of these tours. So part of our initial, I feel like our first discussions were kind of you telling us like you're not charging enough and this is worth more, and kind of getting us to wrap our heads around the fact that it is definitely different from public tours. And even then, to some extent, the whole what you said was, you shouldn't be pricing your tour based on directly on your costs, like taking your costs and then taking a multiplier of that. I mean, especially with private tours where it's not something that's set up on a weekly basis and more or less runs with the bookings and everything kind of automatically week to week. No matter what you do, there is a level of, personal manual effort that goes into every group tour that we put on the books. So it's kind of contacting the restaurants. It's going to be this date, this time. They're not expecting us at that time. So we have to communicate with them, make sure it works for however, 3, 4 restaurants that we're going to be going to, that itinerary works, and then, get back to the customer with all those details. So it has a lot more value than just breaking down simply the costs. And it was also really difficult for me to get my head around that because a lot of times with private versus public tours, it's like that you spend all your time like really putting your heart and soul into this creative content and this fascinating information that your public tour guests are absolutely, if you have the right people coming on your tours for whom that's what they want, they love that and appreciate that. But that is not the case for most private tours. They have not, the guests, the organizer a lot of times isn't even on the tour. So the people that are coming more or less have no idea what they're getting into. They didn't sign up for it thinking, knowing any information and thinking like, hey, yeah, this is what I'm really going to like. So they just want to come. They want it to be easy. They want to have fun. Food and drinks appears in front of them seamlessly, hopefully, if all things go well. And you really kind of take out a lot of the other stuff, a lot of the other talking to the group information, because it just can't be done in the same sort of way that you do it with smaller public tours. So kind of taking out a bunch of information and then increasing the price at the same time was really a struggle for me mentally. But the more and more we get past that, and people are having a great time, the reviews that we're getting from the organizers are overwhelmingly positive, and nobody is questioning or complaining about price, the better I feel about it. So I'd say it's definitely become more part of my comfort level as we've seen that type of result, I guess.
I want other tours to start doing the same thing. I want other tours to have this confidence in themselves, to start charging more, to start creating these corporate packages. What was the first thing you needed to do, Alyssa, that kind of really got the ball rolling on moving with all this and taking the stand to increase it?
Um, in terms of like with
I
private.
guess, yeah, yeah. On that side, to start developing the private groups, corporate group stream, getting those systems set up. Like, what was that hardest part initially that you had to get over to start
Um,
getting this ball rolling?
Well, I think some of the pricing and some of the descriptions of the tours too, because in that PDF that we now have, we didn't also have, in addition to storing these incoming inquiries in my email folders, I would also just email back, cut and paste from a document that I have, sort of the tour descriptions with all that information in the body of the email. So then, you're kind of like scrolling back afterwards and what did I tell them and what did they respond to it? What questions did they have? So we put together that PDF, which wasn't perfect initially. It kind of had 3 tiers, and we were struggling a little bit with kind of offering these tiers that were a little bit more open to interpretation, I guess you would say, rather than the specific details that we were providing. So that was really difficult. But then the more we kind of latched onto that and the pricing, I think it was just sort of a little bit of a mental hurdle was the biggest part of it. Is just, this is the way we've been doing it. It's working. It's been 50% of our revenue. We just need to keep it in order, sort of pass it on to Rachel and not let the one slip through the cracks that we have in the past. And that will be a good way to kind of boost the revenue going forward, instead of looking at it more as, no, we can offer a better product at a higher price point. that is going to be kind of more bang for our buck and like their buck, and then also paying for the amount of time that we're putting into a lot of these projects. And that has certainly paid off. I mean, I was looking at my numbers just ahead of this call, and last year to date, what we were collecting on average per person for a private tour was about $104 per person. And now it's about $150 per person. So that's, $45 a person. It's just a huge, it's like a 43% increase in pricing. And then also I think part of the process of being able to look at it as a corporate offering versus, more of a modified version of our public tour, which I wasn't necessarily considering it that, but looking back, that's actually what it was. I think that that's helped us too, to really just offer something that makes more sense for the private groups, that is also easier for us to manage and also easier for the restaurants to accommodate. So all of that together, I guess, was, did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
it did. It did. And then I guess my final question here is, from what I can see from some of the numbers on our side that we pulled, since the launch of this new corporate groups page, you've had a strong conversion rate of 12% on that page. And in July, we saw the conversion rate of that corporate groups page skyrocket to 20%, which led to about 19 submissions in a single month of corporate groups coming in requesting more information. How are you handling that uptick in what's happening now?
I wouldn't have even have guessed that uptick was that high. So obviously our process is working. I think that it's just so seamless now. We have it set up so that, requests can come in from that page on our website, and or also through Fair Harbor. I have it set up where you can request a private tour. And either way, it automatically creates a new deal in Active Campaign. So when you look, and I don't know who's using Active Campaign or who isn't, I kind of only knew it to be like really an email marketing solution in the past, not something that necessarily could handle this process the way that it does. So it comes in, you have the deal populated, the details kind of go in there as well. It sends an email to both Rachel and I, so we know that corporate request has come in. Right now, our process is that she picks it up right away, does the initial contact with them, tries to get a call set up so that they can discuss it by phone. And then from there, it just kind of moves through the system. We just move that contact through, and if at any point we lose it, then we, mark it as lost or save for later, and keep going. Other than that, if it does book, we have everything in there from, putting them in Fair Harbor, creating the itinerary with the restaurants. Have the restaurants been contacted? Have we collected final payment? Have we collected dietary restrictions? And then after the tour, we move them into a bucket where they get an automatic follow-up email. And also that takes them to a Google form that we've created for feedback about the tour. So now we're collecting a little bit more hearty information from the organizer in the form of Google Forms. And all of that has been part of this whole process with working with UpLevel. And I think there are still definitely places in that process where we've chosen to keep it more manual. But most of it is automated. And I think it just really is easy to go in there. Rachel goes in every day and just kind of, looks at what needs to be followed up on. You can set tasks for yourself to follow up on different things, or she can send a task to me. So while the volume may be way up, we're a lot more equipped to handle it than we have been in the past. So it doesn't feel overwhelming. Also largely because she's doing a lot of it now too, which is great for me.
That's fantastic. Alyssa, last question here. Where can people find more about you?
bitesofbostonfoodtours.com is our website, which is also looking fantastic, I must say, especially if you look at all of the private tour pages. I think the landing page is looking great. Our corporate tours page is looking great. We have a private tours page. If you do look at our public tours, you'll notice those are a little bit lacking on the design side of things, but those are in progress right now. So I would say the website has been another huge improvement, just thanks to you guys for the design and rewriting a lot of the content on those pages, having sort of a third party eye on it and sort of letting us know where the improvements could be made has been really helpful at this point as well. And we've gotten a lot of compliments on the website and ease of use. And just one comment was, I looked at a lot of food tours in Boston. You guys just really look like you know what you're doing. Which is, I think, the greatest compliment ever. So that has been really exciting. I'm really proud of the website at the point that it's at now. I can't wait to get the public tour pages done, and then I think it will be in really good shape.
Crushing it. You're gonna be crushing it even further. We're gonna have even better numbers next time we talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right.
It keeps going through this fall. That's what we need to get through.
It looks like we got time for one question. If anyone has a question, you can come off mute, raise your hand on the screen, throw that question in the chat if you've got it. But we got time for one question. Mr. Durkee, please.
Alyssa, thanks for sharing your info. Can you, without things being confidential, of course, can you tell me sort of how many requests you're getting and how much is going into active campaign?
That is a good question. I don't have that. I guess I haven't run a report on the inquiries
10
that
a
are
week, 4 a week, 6.
Oh,
like
definitely. I mean, daily at this point. We have incoming requests pretty much daily. That's not to say that all of them book. Joe, do you have any of that information handy? No,
not handy with me. Sorry,
okay.
no.
Yeah,
I can. Yeah, just as an operator, I wonder when, what that little critical threshold is of, is it 2 a day, then you need to automate? Is it 4 a day, then you've got to automate? Just wondering when it becomes valuable to either pay for these services, things like that. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that my answer to that would be, it depends on, how much time, if you're the one who's doing it now as the owner operator, how does that sort of play into your weekly schedule? I was just really, that's a new thing that I don't really know exactly how to control. So enjoy that. So I would say it depends on how much time you have to contribute to that versus, and what are you losing by spending your time on that you could be doing for other aspects of the business, was really a question for me. And I think, a lot of requests have been coming in continuously, but the reality is that process can help a lot more, even if it's just a couple to start. I think that once it takes up less of your time, then you automatically open up more time in your schedule to handle more of them. So kind of having that process in place before it gets super busy is something to seriously consider, because then if it does start, kind of going fast and furious, then you're not kind of looking to pull back and put that process in place while that's all coming in. We started last October, so we were getting into our slower time, worked on it over the winter, and we were ready to go by the time, tours and requests were starting up again this spring. So that turned out to be a really good time for us. And it was a lot of, I would say, time and calls and meetings up front to kind of get everything going. And that was also a good time for us to put our time and effort into kind of those meetings and everything that we needed to do to follow up with them. So I wouldn't wait until it's overwhelming to get the process in place. And then it is also really helpful with all of the other parts, once they are booked, to kind of just keep that neat and orderly and make sure that you've gone through the correct process with whatever information you need to collect from that group all the way through follow up afterwards.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it. Everyone, thank you for being here. I want to be mindful of your time. Alyssa, you have been fantastic. Thank you for all your feedback. Thanks for going through this process. Thanks for sharing this story with everyone else. Everyone else, thank you for being here, being part of our first UpLevel Live Show. We'll see where this continues to go, but I like this format a lot, of having a tour operator that we can talk with and get some real feedback from on these, instead of just me up here touting stuff. So thank you, friends. Thanks for being here.
Perfect.
Alyssa,
Thanks.
any closing words before we go?
No, have a great rest of the summer. It's going by far too quickly, as always happens when August rolls around, right? So soak it all in.
I'll second that. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.